Emeritus Senior Minister, Ministers, former Senior Minister Teo Chee Hean, Chief Justice, ladies and gentlemen. The organizers, my script seems to have disappeared. I've been asked to speak before the guest of honor, ESM Go, because the organizers of this event are possibly under the mistaken impression that I know something about the past. Many years ago, at a private gathering, Dr. Goh Keng Swee spoke of the centrality of the rule of law. The Chinese government had just appointed him their advisor on the special economic zones that China's paramount leader, Deng Xiaoping, had set up. China's development was unstoppable, Dr. Goh predicted. Whatever Singapore had achieved by the mid-1980s, the Chinese will match within a decade or so. And China is bound to be one of the world's largest economies by the early 21st century, if not the largest. So how will Singapore hold its own? Singapore, Dr. Goh said, had one key advantage that the Chinese did not have. Because of its history as a British colony, Singapore had laws, a legal system, and a jurisprudence that was better fitted to the modern market economy. We understand contracts, Dr. Goh said, why contracts are sacrosanct, why they are the coin of the realm, why it is important to enforce contracts, and so on. The Chinese don't understand contracts, Dr. Goh said. This was around 1984. I don't know if this is still so. And then Dr. Goh recounted how in the early years of the PAP government, Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew would hold tutorials for his cabinet on the rule of law. The importance of contracts, why investors will not think of investing in Singapore if they didn't have confidence in our legal system, why our laws have to be written precisely in a particular way, why you have to have order before you had law. Mr. Lee famously reversed the phrase law and order to order and then law, and so on. Dr. Goh said Mr. Lee would hold these tutorials that lasted hours. You can imagine the scene. In the early 1960s and up to August 1965, Mr. Lee and his colleagues were absorbed in ferocious battles with the Communist Party of Malaya and its various open front organizations, and then the Communalists in Malaysia. And amidst these life and death struggles, Mr. Lee conducted tutorials for his cabinet on contract law, among other things. I don't think this happened in any other cabinet in the post-war Commonwealth, not in Nehru's cabinet, not in the Tunkus, not in Kaundas or Nyerere's. In Singapore, this happened. Dr. Goh recounted the story more than 40 years ago. I remember being struck, even then, how he did not mention all the other fine things that's about Singapore that we would habitually highlight. You know the litany: stable government, meritocracy, racial and religious harmony, incorruptibility, and a highly efficient civil service, and so on. I'm sure Dr. Goh thought all these were sterling virtues too. But that evening, wondering what might be Singapore's key competitive advantage vis-a-vis a rising China, the great man mentioned only the rule of law and the sanctity of contracts. In the first 60 years of Singapore's existence as an independent, sovereign country, we had only 3 ministers of law: Mr. E.W. Barker, Professor S. Jayakumar, who's also here, and Mr. K. Shanmugam, before Mr. Edwin Tong was appointed in May last year. Each of the first 3 served an average of 20 years as law minister, apart from their other portfolios. By contrast, we have had 7 ministers of foreign affairs, 9 ministers of finance, 10 ministers of defense, and 11 ministers of home affairs. I'm not including second ministers, senior ministers of state, and so on, just the top men in each of these portfolios. In the British system, the 4 great officers of state are said to be By convention, the Prime Minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, that's Finance, the Foreign Secretary, and the Home Secretary. In Singapore, we have had 31 people occupy the 4 great offices of state in the first 60 years of our independence, but just 3 law ministers. Why is this so? I don't suppose we'll get an authoritative answer unless we were to ask Singapore's 4 prime ministers. One of them, Mr. Goh, is here and can tell us if I'm completely off the mark. What follows is my own speculation as to why we have had only 3, Eddie, Prof, and Shan, as they are habitually popularly known in the first 60 years of our independence. The first reason is what Dr. Goh alluded to more than 40 years ago, the centrality of the rule of law. This is one of the great insights of the founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew that is not often mentioned. In economics, we boast of our foresight in attracting multinational companies leaning forward to negotiate numerous trade agreements and fostering trilateralism and close bonds with the unions, trade unions. In security and foreign policy, we wax eloquent about how we worked hard to strengthen a rule-based order. And in social policy, we are familiar with all the principles evoked in our pledge: one united people regardless of race, language, or religion, justice and equality, so as to achieve happiness, prosperity, and progress for our nation. The great insight of our founding generation, Mr. Lee in particular, was that none of these shining ideals would be possible without the rule of law. No independent judiciary means no investments. No sanctity of contracts means no business, no ownership, no public housing even, and certainly no justice and equality. No clear and transparent laws means no trust, and possibly no happiness, prosperity, and progress. No respect for international law means no reputation for honesty and reliability, and no security. I think we have had only 3 law ministers in the first 60 years of our independence because our prime ministers, beginning with the first, thought this job was so crucial and they trusted only 3 men to do it. And as far as the first prime minister was concerned, his sense of what's required in a law minister would have been forged in the crucible of separation. You'll get a powerful sense of this when you read the recently published Albatross file. On 15 July 1965, or soon after, when Dr. Goh told Mr. Lee that the federal ministers, including the Tunku, his deputy Tun Razak, and their Home Minister Tun Ismail, were thinking of hiving off Singapore, Mr. Lee asked Mr. Barker to begin drafting a separation agreement. Mr. Barker did all the research himself. He consulted no one, not even the Attorney General at that point, apart from Mr. Lee. He relied on no support staff, apart from the assistance of the Cabinet Secretary then, Wong Chui Sen, and Mr. Lee's PA, Tan Ban Hock, who typed, retyped, and then re-retyped the documents. Between 15th July and 6th August, just 3 weeks, Mr. Barker drafted the separation agreement as well as the amendments to the Malaysian Constitution, allowing for the separation for Singapore to leave the Federation. You think of that, it was our law minister, Singapore's, not the Malaysian law minister or the Attorney General, who drafted all this, everything. Separation agreement, the amendments to the Malaysian Constitution that the Malaysian Prime Minister Tunku Abdul Rahman took through 3 readings in the Malaysian Parliament on 9th August 65 on a certificate of urgency, and the proclamation of Singapore's separation from the Federation that the Tunku read over Malaysian TV and radio the same morning. Every word drafted by our law minister, Singapore's. Why only 3 law ministers in the first 60 years of our independence? Well, whoever is in this apostolic succession has to be able to accomplish what Mr. Barker did in 3 weeks. Produce a legally binding document that secured our independence and has never been challenged. You can't think of a better example of the law founding a nation, literally. Not many people can do this, thus only 3 in 60 years and now a 4th. In Mr. Barker's case, we have his oral history and a good biography by Susan Sim. For Professor Jayakumar, we are fortunate to have many volumes of his reflections on many subjects. And now for Mr. Shanmugam, we have had this collection of his speeches, interviews, and writings, which I hope will be the first of many. But for all his undoubted brilliance and immense resourcefulness, he has an ingenious mind, as you all know. Mr. Shammugam is a much misunderstood man, and that is to put it mildly. The left regards him as hardline. They'd be surprised to learn in this book how often he came out and continues to come out on the liberal side of controversies, sometimes inconveniencing his own party. He has an image as a fierce, no-nonsense politician with no tolerance for fools. Actually, on the ground, especially in his own area in Yishun, he's among the most popular of politicians, exceeded usually only by the prime ministers he has served. An NGO activist summoned recently to meet him and expecting her head to be chopped off, expressed her shock on Facebook, I think, when she discovered an emollient Mr. Shanmugam. And among civil servants, he is widely regarded as someone who is supportive and loyal, sometimes to a fault. This is the point at which I stop and leave Mr. Shanmugam's former boss, ESM, to give his verdict of Mr. Shammugam, the person and the politician, the MP and the minister. ESM.